10 to 6, I think, on Tuesday afternoon. I'm pretty sure about that. Sitting here in the dark. We lost power about 2 hours ago. Yeah, just about 4, a few minutes before it. Our guys here are pretty good. The power company, the public utility district, and say 90% of all of the outages are resolved within like 6 hours. And of that, probably half of them are resolved in like 3 hours or so. Anyway, so I was sitting here, I was thinking about all this stuff, and I thought, well, may as well just do an audio while I've got the time here. Anyway, so we've had some interesting developments at a society or community level within the morass that is the woo people, right? We've had all kinds of people that are encountering difficulties in one way or another. A lot of this has to do with we're getting to the end of the fantasy level of all of the UFO and all of that kind of stuff, because we're going to be dealing with the reality of it, right? When one comes out, the other must fade away. It's going to be impossible for Corey Goode to be doing his UFO bullshit when we got real UFOs flying around. Who the fuck cares about his imaginings, right? And he's not doing well anyway, at a personal level. Anyway, so we've got activity within personalities within the UFO community and the ancillary crypto community and all of that kind of stuff, the woo area. And a lot of this is being prompted by something outside. So it wasn't anything internal to Charlie Ward that told him to repudiate the QFS and say that it's a white hat psyop distraction. And his spirit guys told him this. And I don't know if he's talking his spirit guides or a bunch of fellows that are like his rabbis, you know. In any event, though, he's been told, and now he's saying QFS is a white hat psyop. And in the past, he'd actually claimed to have been in charge of the rollout of the QFS, that he was managing it. He was intimately tied into it. And he talked to the Q people. All of this kind of horseshit, right? And so that level of fantasy world is disappearing. It's disappearing because of the emergence of the reality. So when there's actual, military tribunals and people are getting sentenced and all of that, in other words, when we get into that level of stuff, then why do you care to hear about the woo people commentary on it, right? And now that there's all the activity of the Trump team having won, but they're going through all of the problems in dealing with the deep state and their response and their reaction, that again is also taking the focus away from a lot of the fantasists in terms of what they're spewing, the David Wilcox and these kind of people. It's an interesting thing, okay? So this all involves what we call karma, which is really the yoga of action, right? Yoga meaning union in Sanskrit, the bonding with. And so you are bound to your actions in this reality. You are also, and those actions cause results and consequences. Mostly they cause further actions. You are bound to the actions you do, but you don't own the results of them. So you can go on in and be happy and jolly and go on in and get a coffee at like a McDonald's or something in the morning, and you're going to get back in your car and drive on into work, and any number of things could happen that universe could present to you that would cause you to reconsider your internal happy mood if it is based on your expectations for and from the external reality. So that's really my objection at its core to David Wilcock, Kerry Cassidy, Michael Salla, the E. SETI dude, Corey Goode, all of these kind of people, right? All of them. My objection to them is that they are polluting our appreciation for the external reality. And so they're like getting in the way. Now, obviously, universe wants us to have to deal with the fantasist, okay? It wants us to have to go through that in order to determine what's real. And so it presents them. It's not an accident that Corey Goode got pumped up, all right? In my opinion, he was a useful idiot for the CIA. Okay, you only have to go and look at who owns all the stock in Gaia at the time that Corey Goode's show was being produced by Jay Weidner, and at that point the board of directors was beating the crap out of Jay Weidner to keep producing more of these Corey Goode shows, right? And Jay had all kinds of reservations about it, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at who owned Gaia at the time in terms of their stock, you see that, oh yeah, this looks like it's a CIA op, the whole company. It's there for a reason, right? It's being promoted by the deep state for a reason. And of course, Corey Goode got all kinds of acceptance because of the authority that was lent to his story by it coming at you through this network. Right. Even though they say it's entertainment, even though they say it's all stuff, nobody actually comes out and says, at the beginning of every show, we got a half-hour show here, or an hour, however long it was, and we're going to have these two guys spew their bullshit at you, right? Bear in mind, when we think one of them is a psychopath, or maybe a psychopath, but he's certainly a sociopath, and the other one is just Looney Tunes. Now here you go. Here's the David and Corey show. That's not going to go over very well, right? So it was the authority that was lent to these two people with Jay Weidner's skill and the impression, the deliberate putting onto their story of authority from the organization that allowed it to get that coverage and allowed it to get as far out there as it did. And it all comes crashing down because it's not real. And now we're at that same stage with a lot of the other woo people in the stories that are going on, because we're right at the verge of getting into and encountering and dealing with real aliens, and we don't need them anymore, right? So we don't need these stories anymore. There's no longer going to be a gap to fill. Just like now that Trump is elected, does 107 have a job anymore, right? Is he off on a vacation finally? Does he get to go and put his feet up and take those boots off? Because things change, right? So they change over time. So the other day, Carrie Cassidy was on the Wacky Woo show with JC and Joe, and, they were gentle with her, but she's spewing a line of horseshit when she says, she just makes statements. Oh, well, there's a blockchain being run off-world. And it's like, okay, that's fine, Carrie. We don't believe you. We think that's horseshit. And, oh, by the way, if that were the case, how does that blockchain get mined down here on Earth such that those coins could be used, or that information could be used and available here? And so she has to invent another fantasy in order to support that. Oh, well, you don't have to, because, there's a tie-in from a satellite down to your computer or something, right? And she doesn't understand the technology, and she admits that. But she says blockchain and has a connotation for it that is wildly inaccurate. She thinks there's only one blockchain. She doesn't really recognize that you need hundreds of or thousands of computers to mine the blockchain in order to keep the chain going. Has no concept of the individual blocks. She thinks that blockchain can be run off world. She thinks AI doesn't need a computer. She thinks that's old style thinking to believe that an AI needs computer. And it's like, okay, what's it running on? Oh, well, it floats through space. Okay, all right, that's fine. You're talking ghosts and goblins and other things that are totally immaterial, and they could exist, but the probability of them existing is way low. But the point of the discussion here is not just to bitch and moan about Carrie and Charlie Ward and these other guys, Michael Salla and all these people that believe in the fantasies, and the Corey Goodes and the David Wilcock that supply material for that belief, and it's all 100% made up and bullshit. The point is to say that now that we're moving into the real shift into this age of Aquarius kind of stuff, these people are not going to be the only ones that are going to be running up into a wall where their particular worldview, which includes those things that I'm labeling as fantasy, coming down. They're not going to be the only ones. So we're going to see Brett Weinstein, Eric Weinstein, Brian Keating, all of these kind of people, right? All of these academicians and scientists, or podcasting scientists, these kind of guys, they're going to all have a major crisis of faith, right? They're going to have to really examine their faith in their particular religion. Because as the aliens show up and it becomes obvious these guys are not using diesel engines and they're using the physics derived from the ontology, from an ontological understanding of universe, within that ontological understanding of universe, as an instance, what is evolution? So Brett Weinstein and Heather E. Haying have real problems, as do all the other evolutionary biologists and anybody that is in the evolutionary business. Also, this is going to affect all of the people that are in laboratory sciences and statistical sciences as well, because they're all operating from the idea that there is random chance that is possible within the universe. And in ontology, exactly that is not the case. There is no such thing as random in our universe at all, ever manifesting in our materium. And we work our asses off as computer programmers, writing firmware, trying to devise a way to get even a quasi-random number to appear. So the RND function at the assembly language level in all of the x86 computer chip instruction sets, which is basically everything that powers our world, but also in all the other instruction sets for all of the other computer architectures, the RND function at the assembly language is a bound range. It's not truly random. It's a predictable bound range with predictable periods of imprecise predictability. So it's a quasi-random number. Okay, so random doesn't exist. So because random does not exist and we can't manufacture it, that's not why I'm saying it doesn't exist in our universe, but it's quite clear that it does not exist in our materium. And because of that, all different kinds of things come to mind when you want to view things from the ontological perspective. So there is some value to the understanding implied by or given by the idea of Watson and Darwin's evolutionary theory, right? I think his name was Watson. Darwin stole he plagiarized a lot of it from this guy who never really got a lot of credit and who had some slightly different ideas, and he was sort of left by the wayside in history. And Darwin gets all of the credit for this. But it's not strictly speaking his theory. But anyway, in an ontological universe where there is no random, there are no random chance occurrences of genes happening. There's no random chance occurrences of, a stray particle of gamma ray coming down and exciting the gene pool in a murky Paleozoic muck pond, right? And causing life to occur. That's horseshit. Absolute horseshit. I mean, it's 100% wrong. It just does not work that way. So evolution, on the idea of all this random chance occurrences of all these genes coming together and, look at the odds on that happening and so on and so on and so on, is humans applying and trying to apply an understanding and trying to develop a matrix in which to hold it in their minds when they have discovered the design patterns of the ontology. So I'm not saying that the things that they have noticed are not there. I'm saying that what they're noticing is not as a result of random chance, but is a part of the design pattern of the manifestations of the materium as it has been created by the ontology, and it's designed to look this way. So there is no random chance evolution kind of crap. That is strictly a Talmudic viewpoint. Okay, and it's so they're all expressing something that's going to go away, along with the Talmud and all of that horseshit religion stuff is going to go away when we start dealing with space aliens and interacting with them more as we go forward over these next few years. It's going to totally disrupt and get rid of almost all the religions. There's a couple that are going to be validated in strange ways. And their adherents are going to probably stick around, and the religions will probably stick around. But in the main, all of what we think of as like the popular religions, but especially Judaism, Mohammedanism, and Christianity are going to be massively redone. Okay, I mean, it's not going to be it's going to be a revolution within the structure. And then, of course, because of the nature of the interaction with the aliens, and because of the nature of the validation of certain ideas relative to the O physics, a lot of the stuff that religion used to be responsible for will no longer be within its realm, and it'll be outside of its realm. So religion will have actually very, very little power or effect on the social order as we go forward. This is one of the things that, a lot of people are really fearful about. Just like they're fearful of the 0-point technology totally destroying the economic base for the whole fucking planet. And they think it's going to occur overnight. And it will occur, but it's going to take 60, 80 years. Even as we build replicators and start cranking out power plants, that are little suitcase power plants, and putting them on UFOs and zipping them over to villages in Africa, even at that, and, in Asia and all these other places, even at that level, it's going to take 60 or 80 years for these things to impact the way that humans do things among themselves, in my opinion. And a lot of these fears are generated by, in my opinion, reliance on people that don't think very deeply, that can't think their way past the gritology that supports their particular, quote, science, like psychology and psychiatry. So all these psychologists and psychiatrists are rendering opinions that, oh my God, the whole horrid thing that's going to happen when this XYZ occurs and this 0-point technology comes out and the economic base collapses, right? Because people won't need to buy oil. And it's like, well, excuse me, just because 0-point technology comes out doesn't mean I don't need to fill up my diesel car, right? And I'm still going to be needing to buy diesel for 15, 20 years until I get a floaty vehicle, because it's going to take that long to build the infrastructure to do this shit. And then start actually winding it out into the social order. And along the way, there's going to be all kinds of stuff that intrudes. So, so again, it's a level of the fantasists that is intruding in there, that are making these people think along these kind of lines. But the psychiatrists and the psychologists, they are they're basing all of their stuff on a science that is based on grit and whose underlying statistical assumptions are invalid. So much is invalid if you have an ontological perspective, such as their perspective on the mind and its nature and how things occur. As we will see, so big pharma starts going away next year, really crumbling. We're going to get into a whole new range of science in 2025 and beyond. We'll start getting into science based on an ontological perspective, and we'll redo all the mathematics. A lot of that stuff will go real quick because the grunt work, we can just run if you have power, which I don't at the moment, you could just run a lot of the conversion of these formulae through AI to assist you in working all this stuff out.